This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark, and today's guest makes me feel honored. It's Jad Fair, and he doesn't do many interviews. So when we were able to make this happen, I was thrilled. Jad is one half of half Japanese. Quarter Japanese? And he's not even actually Japanese. I learned that and a lot more in this episode. Okay, I knew he wasn't any Japanese before doing this podcast, but what I did learn was how Jad creates his unique music. It began when he and his brother David began creating music back in Michigan in the early 70s. That music came to the attention of a pre-Teller Penn Jillette, but Penn isn't the only collaboration Jad has had. In fact, that was just the beginning. Jad has played with some amazing people like Moe Tucker, Steve Fisk, and Daniel Johnston. And Jad's music isn't the only unique art he creates. He draws, makes paper cuttings that become album art, and he even designed his own guitar that is held together by rubber bands and can be folded in half to make it easier to travel. We also touch on the different hurdles that there are to getting noticed in music and how that's changed since Half Japanese started recording. So follow him on Instagram at jad.fair. Find his music on Kill Rock Stars, Joyful Noise, Fire Records, and Moon Records, or Bandcamp. And follow us at Performance ANX on X and Instagram. Merch is at performanceanx.threadless.com. Send a cup of coffee to us at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And prepare to enter the magical world of love songs and monsters with Jad Fair on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Okay. My name's Jad Fair, and I'm in the band Half Japanese. And I've got a couple new records with Samuel Locke on Kill Rock Stars. And you're listening to Performance Anxiety. And thanks a lot. Well, it's so seldom that I ever do this.
Oh, well, thank you for doing it for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is really cool because I think the first time I ever heard anything you did was early 90s. Early 90s on the Velvet Underground tribute album.
Okay.
And it was really, I want to know a little bit about what got you into music in the first place, because you are a part of one of the most unique original bands of all time in Half Japanese. You guys sound like nobody else. And what I find always fascinating with bands that are so unique is something had to draw you into music in the first place. And I was just kind of wondering, was music an important part of your childhood growing up, or was it something that like your brother got you into? Or what music played an important part in your life?
Well, listening to music always was very important to me, but it wasn't until going to college when my brother David and I were able to rent a house together, very close to the campus. And the house was so remote that we were able to play music any time of the day that we wanted to. So we certainly made full use of that.
Oh, nice. What were you listening to that really made you get into music in the first place? And you guys are from Michigan. Yeah. My computer's going still a little nuts right now. I'm working on an old laptop. It's giving me some trouble today. So,
well, I'm growing up in Michigan. So many of my favorite bands were Michigan bands, the Stooges and MC5 and Destroy All Monsters, Question Mark and the Mysterians. I mean, there were so many truly fine bands back then. Even now, there's a lot of great Michigan bands.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, that, and I was a huge fan of Captain Beefheart and Lyle Coxhill, Sun Ra. Okay. So, I was listening to quite a few different things back then.
Quite a wide variety of stuff too, because that's a wide range of music. There's Sun Ra to the Stooges to MC5.
It's kind of surprising because I grew up in a very small town. So it certainly was not urban at all. It was just a tiny little town. But my brother somehow had the albums. So I was lucky in that regard that David always seemed to have the most recent things, and not just the most recent things, but the really cool things.
Right. So did you guys ever take any musical lessons? Did you start playing instruments at all when you were a kid?
Well, in high school, I took a music course, but I can't say I got anything from it, really.
What instrument did you play?
Well, I got my drums. I had a bongo that I thought I was trying to do something with. So, that was it. So, in high school, I was banging on drums. Just I didn't have a real drum set. I just had the, boxes and pans and junk that I banged on. I had that, and I also had a saxophone that I enjoyed playing.
But you didn't really play anything seriously until you moved to Maryland then?
Well, when my brother and I went to college, it was at Grand Valley State College in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been in like 74. We started playing and recording things, but it wasn't until like 76, 77 that we were in Maryland and started releasing things.
Okay, what made you guys move from Michigan to Maryland?
Well, first of all, my parents moved there, and I would go to visit them at Christmas time, and it seemed like a good thing to me because, going from Michigan where it was very cold, and then I would go to see them at Christmas, and it would be like 15, 20 degrees warmer in Maryland. And that appealed to me. So
that makes sense.
And now I'm in Texas, which is even warmer.
Yeah.
So I kind of gravitate toward the warmth.
You're slowly making your way to the equator.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So what made you guys start a band then? What was the impetus to start Half Japanese, and how did you pick that name?
Well, we picked the name just drawing words out of a hat.
Oh, wow.
We had two hats. We pulled the word half out of one, and then out of the other hat, we pulled Japan, which would have been half Japan, but we thought half Japanese kind of had a better ring to it. And at that, I think we put Japan in there because at the time we were listening quite a bit to Yoko Ono. We had a lot of Yoko's albums. And it was that also the Japanese monster movies we were a big fan of.
That plays a big part in your career, the monsters, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Is Half Japanese the first band that you were officially ever really a part of?
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, I kind of messed around with some other musicians during high school, but as really a band, it wasn't until Half Japanese.
Okay, and you guys really, nowadays it's not uncommon for people to self-record and self-release, but you guys were doing that in the 70s when it was not as easy to record at home and find places to release your music.
Well, at that time, I mean, there were a few other people doing it. I can think of the Residents and our Stevie Moore. There was, beyond that, Los Angeles Free Music Society. And that was pretty much it.
So, it's not like it's ubiquitous now. I mean, everybody's got their own band or their own project, and they're all releasing it on SoundCloud or Spotify themselves.
I should say Armin Schrobuck, too. Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed his music.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD. You self-released a lot of music, early to mid-'70s and all. And then I read something, and I'm hoping you can kind of clear this up for me because I'm not sure. I've read this two different ways. The record label, was it 50? I want to pronounce it 50 Skadillion Watt Records.
Yes.
I've read both that the band started that, but that also Penn Jillette started it to release half Japanese albums. How did that start?
Well, the first two EPs were released by my brother David and I, and under that record label.
Okay.
But then it wasn't until several years later that Penn Jillette and MC Caustic started their label, which had the same label title is what David and I used to have.
Wow. So how did you meet Penn and start releasing stuff on his version of 50 Skadillion Watt Records?
Well, Penn purchased one of the EPs.
Okay.
And I started corresponding with Penn. It would have been like 78 or so. Yeah, he was at that time was with Asparagus Now. And it wasn't until like a year or two after that he started working with Teller.
Oh my gosh, so it was early on for both of you.
Oh yeah.
The covers that you guys were doing back then, it's fascinating. I mean, your music is fascinating, but I'm very curious as to how you guys chose covers and recorded them, because 10th Avenue Freeze Out and Tangled Up in Blue.
One morning the sun was shining, but I was laying in bed. What did I see? Things that I was so red. Her folks said I ride together, so it was gonna be rough. Nothing like mom's homemade dress, Papa's big book wasn't big enough.
They're amazing, but they, obviously they sound nothing like Springsteen or Dylan. Are you picking your favorites from these artists, or is there some other process?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It was all, whatever I enjoyed the most. I certainly wasn't out to, play down anybody. It was all because Bruce Springsteen did release some very fine albums, the first couple of things. Well, first few albums I liked a lot, and which doesn't mean I dislike what he's doing later, but for my taste, it was the first few albums.
Yeah. Oh, understandable.
Yeah. And I've always been a big fan of Bob Dylan.
A lot of people are, I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the word.
So back in those days, were you guys, the band as a whole, were you playing out a lot, or were you recording more, or was there a split? Like you spent more time recording, didn't play, or were you playing out live shows more and just recording as you could?
Well, we really didn't play out that much.
Okay.
It was usually when someone would invite us to play somewhere. Like we had friends in Washington, D.C., the band the Chumps would have shows and would invite my brother and I to be on the same bill with them.
Oh, cool.
And I'm also in when we had shows in Baltimore, it was usually with the Tinklers. So yeah, big fans of both those. Well, and also Velvet Monkeys. We did a lot of shows in DC with them.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm not too far from DC myself, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
When did the fascination with monsters begin? Because you famously have stated that all your songs are either love songs or songs about monsters.
Well, that's something my brother said.
Oh, okay, sorry.
and that pretty much is the case. Yeah. Well, as a young kid, my favorite movies were monster movies. And I always looked forward to Saturday night. They would have the creature feature. And I would always go to bed early on a Saturday night. My parents would probably think, oh, that's a good boy. Right. But then I'd go to bed early and thinking, well, I'm going to wake up at midnight and turn on television, which I did, week after week. I would do that because I really loved to see the monsters.
So what was your favorite?
Well, I think probably Dracula, Frankenstein, the classics.
Yeah. I'll tell you what one always freaked me out was A Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, yeah.
That one always, I don't know why, that freaked me out more than just about anything. That, and I think it was the Ghost of Frankenstein? I think that was one of them. I don't know. I just remember a scene where there's somebody in a boat and he looks down into the water and he sees Frankenstein's face in the water, and that freaked me out. That was when I was a kid. That scared the crap out of me.
The Creature from the Black Lagoon was released as 3D as well. I've seen it both ways.
Oh, I've never seen it 3D. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. You've had, to say your output has been prolific is not doing justice to the amount and the quality of music that you've released. I mean, you've done an incredible amount of music, and you've played with some amazing people. I mean, I was looking at the list. I mean, this is Moe Tucker, Daniel Johnston, Yola Tango, Steve Fisk, who's one of my favorites.
Dropped his last dime in the wishing well, but he was hoping too close. Then he found out he's Casper the Friendly Ghost. He was always polite to the people in town. He was nothing but a racing bum, but goodbye to them. He had to run now. He's Casper the Friendly Ghost.
And I know there's no one way that this kind of thing happens.
That was a scam call.
Oh, no. Yeah, man, I get those too.
Yeah.
For the most part, are you being approached by people like Moe Tucker and Steve Fisk to do things, or are you searching people out to collaborate with?
Well, it usually starts as a friendship.
Oh, okay.
Because
that's the best way.
I started corresponding with Moe a couple of years before we actually met and started recording together. Some friends of mine from the Velvet Underground Appreciation Society had a stop in, it was, I think maybe Phoenix, where Moe was living at the time, and gave her a cassette tape of Half Japanese, and she liked the tape. So I started writing to Moe, and so it started as a friendship, and same with Daniel Johnston.
Wow.
Half Japanese had a show in Austin, Texas back in 1985, around that. Okay. And Daniel's manager, Jeff Tartikoff, gave me a cassette tape of Daniel. And I was just so impressed with Daniel as a performer and also as a songwriter. Because, there's hundreds and thousands of excellent musicians, but for a lyricist, that really is something special.
Yeah.
And I always thought of Daniel as being a genius. And I was so fortunate to be able to work with him.
Oh, yeah. And the music you guys made together is amazing.
Sometimes when I'm watching television, and I think that most of the people in the movie are probably dead, and it's spooky. And when I go to a funeral, see the people.
It's really, it's beautiful, which makes me think, I wanted to ask you this question. When you're recording, again, I was watching the documentary, and the way you and your brother talk about how to master guitar, it's very simple. The fat chords make the low noises, the little ones make the high noises.
Oh, yeah.
When you're going to record music, are you writing the songs ahead of time, or is it improv, or is it something that is already mapped out ahead of time?
But usually I'll have a few lines written down, or sometimes it's just the song title.
Wow.
And I'm pretty good at just improvising, but it's not entirely improvised. It's there's a little bit of things written down ahead of time, but it's very skeletal.
Oh, see, so you basically just come in with an idea and you work it out while you're recording it.
Yeah. Well, with the past 4 or 5 half Japanese albums, the musicians, Mick Hobbs, Geo Reeder, John Sluggett, and Jason Willett will go in and work out the music and send it to me, and then at home I'll add the vocal.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Do you have a favorite piece of gear that you use, or are you just open to using anything that you can find?
Well, a lot of it I just do on computer with GarageBand. Yeah.
Oh, so I was watching the documentary, The Band That Would Be King. It's amazing. It is such a great film. And I shouldn't say what fascinated me. One of the fascinating things that I noticed was your actual guitar that you're using throughout the performances, in that it looks like the neck is comes apart from, like you're taking it apart when you're packing up, but in the middle of a show it's bending and the strings are like a foot away from the neck. It's a wild setup.
Well, I started doing that. Well, a couple reasons I started doing that. The airlines started charging extra for extra luggage, and I wanted a guitar that I could fold in half and put in my carry-on luggage. So I started doing that. And also, one advantage is quite often when I have shows in other countries, I won't have proper work papers. So just between you and I,
you got it.
So having a guitar that doesn't look like a full guitar, even if the customs people have a look at it, they don't see it as being anything professional, which is good. So actually when I put the guitar together now, I do it with rubber bands.
Really?
Which,
oh my God.
Yeah, which, I'm able to do a lot of like wah-wah kind of stuff with it.
Oh, it's okay. So that makes a lot more sense now, that thinking back on what I was watching and how you were bending the neck so much and it wasn't snapping.
Oh no. Yeah. It's just rubber bands.
That is amazing. Oh my God. Now I want one of those guitars. I want a guitar that'll do that. That is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a patent on it yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll work on that. You've also gotten into some incredible art, your drawings and your paper cutting. They're beautiful. How did you start getting into doing the paper cutting?
I was doing a lot of touring with half Japanese. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to have something to do during the long, very long trips in the van. And I would find that, trying to read in a moving van, I would get headaches. So, that's no good. And right. Doing drawings in a moving van, my hand just wasn't that steady. But I found that I was able to use scissors, which doesn't really sound like that safe a thing. But, no. I've never cut myself doing it. So,
hey,
it is what it is. Yeah.
Well, they're amazing. They're so intricate. I love them. They're just fascinating. I was looking at some of the works on your website, and they're just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So you mentioned that you got into that touring at its height. How often were you guys on the road? I mean, were you doing 100 dates a year or more or less? I mean, at the peak of touring, what was it like for you?
And at the peak, I'd say maybe 35 shows during a year was probably the most. And I've cut way back on that. Now it's maybe not even 10 shows during a year.
Wow.
It's probably 10.
Do you do you try to stay regional then, or do you go out? Do you spread out?
Well, I just had some shows in England and France.
That's spreading out.
4 shows in England and 2 in France. But it'd been years since I did that. Well, because of the pandemic made it difficult to travel.
Okay, so that brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you about. 2021. I know a lot of people who released albums because they didn't really, they couldn't go tour. They had no place to play, so they worked on their music. But your discography in 2021 is unparalleled. I mean, I think it was 146 releases in 2021.
Yeah, it would have been that. 146 on Bandcamp, but then I also had other releases not on Bandcamp that year. So I'd say total, it was probably about 150.
Wow. And these releases aren't just like a single here or there or an EP. I mean, they're full length releases. There's 12, 13, 14 songs. I mean, and I noticed on some days you'd release 3 albums a day. It's just amazing. I mean, was that as a response to the pandemic and not being able to get out and work and do stuff?
It was partly that. And I hardly ever do New Year's resolution. I'm going to release 100 albums in a year's time. And about halfway through the year, I thought, well, anybody can release 100 albums. I'm going to do 150.
Anybody?
So I'm kind of upped it a bit.
Yeah, I would say so. And I guess maybe you've this has been asked and answered already, but with that amount of material, was that, I guess, recording it as improvisational, or was it more, I've got some old material that I'm going to start recording and releasing, or was it a mix?
It was a mix. I've done older things, and when I say older things, it would have been older notes from years ago that I hadn't really gotten around to recording yet.
Okay, so it wasn't like older recordings. It's everything is new. It's just Okay.
One second.
Yeah, sure.
Hello. Okay, see you in a little bit then. Oh, sure. Okay, sounds good. Okay, bye-bye. Okay.
All right. So like we're saying, that wasn't like older recordings that had been laying around and you just released them. Everything from 2021 was newly recorded. It may have just been an older idea.
Well, there was maybe 4 albums that were released earlier, but okay. not on Bandcamp. Well, not officially released.
Okay. But 4 out of 150, I mean...
Yeah.
I'll let that one slide.
Give me a break.
Oh, you got it. So you've recently released 2 albums with Samuel Locke Ward, which are awesome. And they seem to fall within what your brother had mentioned, the love songs and songs about monsters. I've got the one right here. I was just listening to it.
Okay, well, good.
So Happy Hearts seems like it's much more of an album with love songs. Yes. And Destroy All Creatures is definitely more focused on the monster aspect. So was that planned that way? Were they?
It was planned that way because we wanted to have a Halloween release, and monsters certainly would fit that bill.
Makes sense.
And Sam and I have recorded another album, which hasn't been released yet, but we're working on the mixing of that album.
Is it Christmas songs?
No.
Dang.
But it's been great to work with Sam.
How did you meet him in the first place?
Well, he sent a message to me on Facebook.
I should have guessed.
Saying that he was wanting to record with me. And at that point, I had only, I was about 35 albums into the year of recording, 100 some. And I told him, I didn't really feel that I could take on anything more at this time. But please write to me again in a couple months. So he wrote to me a couple months later. And at that point, I had over 50 albums recorded. So I thought, I can do it. So we started recording one song each week. And that was a good schedule for him and a good one for me.
Was it all remote, or did you guys get the chance to meet up at all during this process?
No, it was all remote. He would do the music at his home, and I would do the vocal at mine. And I also added some instruments, but it was almost entirely the music was Sam.
Wow. Well, I'm going to tell you, on Happy Hearts, I think my favorite is Donuts. I love that.
Okay, well, good.
I absolutely love that song.
You can buy them by the dozen, you can buy them by the pound. Donuts, and you'll be glad you got them. Pass a few around. Donuts, you're as sweet as cinnamon. Donuts, and you make the world seem right. Donuts, oyster chocolate items.
So the new release is Destroy All Monsters, and I think Ain't It a Shame might be, and I will come 100% clean. I have not been able to listen to all 200 and some releases that you've done and all the half Japanese. Haven't been able to catch up yet. But from what I have listened to over the years, I think Ain't It a Shame is maybe my favorite song that you've ever done.
Oh, well, thank you.
Electronic monster man has gone too far this time. Ain't it a shame? Electronic monster made by man, evil made by evil. Ain't it a shame?
close second is Book of the Dead, which I really like how that you kind of have two songs about the Necronomicon on that album. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Some things are best left unsaid, and this is one of them. Log cabin in the woods, 4 friends in a book. The Book of the Dead. The Necronomicon. Log cabin in the dead of night. Whatever you do, don't read from it. Whatever you do.
I don't know any other album that has 2 songs about the Necronomicon on it.
Well, the Evil Dead movies, I've enjoyed all the Evil Dead movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I went back and I was listening to it again today. I think one of the coolest things I've heard in a long time on any piece of music is that amazing tangent that you kind of go off on The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Okay.
I think that is amazing.
The Incredible Shrinking Man. Smaller than a little puppy dog. And that reminds me, a few days ago I was walking around my neighborhood and I saw my neighbor Tom. He was out walking his dog. You know, he has one of those little dogs. And I said, well, you know, good morning. And he didn't say nothing back. And I said, well, you don't like your dog? I've always liked those little wiener dogs. And he gets like real mad. He's almost shouting at me. Don't call it a wiener dog. It's called a Dachshund. Well, I mean, I know that. You know, I didn't mean anything by it.
I mean, was that a real story, or was that something that just popped into your head?
Well, it's funny. And listening to it now, what strikes me funny is, so it was improvised. You know, and so often when I get music from Sam, I do the vocal without ever having heard the music first.
Oh wow!
And more often than not, it'll be a first take. So
that is all right. So with so many releases and working with so many people, I know you have mentioned that some of this is improvised and off the cuff, like you just mentioned. Do you have a writing process where you keep your notes somewhere, and do you just bring a pile of them to reference, or how does your writing process work?
Well, I have a lot of notebooks, and sometimes you get to thinking, well, boy, I don't really know what to write about, and during those times, I'll just write down on the right side of the paper. I'll just write different words that rhyme. Okay. And, go to that page, and then another page, just words that rhyme. And sometimes, you see different words together, and that'll kind of click as to, well, this word could lead to something that would lead to that other word. So, yeah.
I guess so. I mean, are you bringing the notebooks in to record as well, or are you just kind of relying on your memory to go back and think of things as during the recording process? I guess maybe more.
Yeah, well, I'll have words in front of me.
Okay,
but quite often, maybe I'll stick to that, or maybe not. So it's very loose.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it sounds like it's a very loose process. Yeah. Are you planning on playing any of this stuff live? I know you mentioned that you've cut your live dates down a lot, but are you and Sam ever planning on playing together?
Well, Sam has brought that up a few times with me. He'd be real keen on doing it. It's difficult for me to be away from home for a long stretch of time. And, I just recently had shows with Half Japanese. So I feel a need to be at home for at least a bit of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Before going out again.
I think one of the things that I really enjoy about the last 2 albums, but your music in general, is there's like an innocence an innocent quality to the sound of everything. And it's really refreshing. And to me, it sounds amazing to hear something refreshing and innocent sounding from someone who's been creating art for almost 50 years or more at this point. So I want to thank you for being like a mental cleanse for my brain when I listen to your music. It really refreshes me and kind of puts me in a happier, better mind frame when I listen to you. You make me smile when I listen to your music.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
What is the best way for people to find your music? The stuff with Sam, but also any of the other work you've done, Half Japanese, your solo stuff.
I mean, boy, there certainly is just a ton of stuff on, the different streaming things, which I kind of have mixed feelings about that because I mean, there's so much out there. But they really don't pay anything, which is the downside of that. So, that's a good point. So, you guys, as Half Japanese, back in the early to mid 70s, like we mentioned before, you were recording and releasing stuff on your own. But and I imagine that was difficult to get the attention of labels and listeners just doing it that way. And now there's the ability to record at home. That's much easier than it was back then. And there's a lot more platforms to self-release. But there's so much stuff out there. In your experience and in your opinion, do you think it's harder to find exposure now or back in the mid 70s? I think it's certainly easier to record and easier to get things out there.
But fighting through all the noise now is just the difficult part.
Finding an audience is difficult.
Yeah. I mean, did you, and I guess maybe that was part of what made one of the great things about Half Japanese was how unique the sound was and is back then and even now. Maybe made it a little easy. I don't want to say easier, but maybe made it more unique to cut through the noise back then to find an audience. But I don't know if it's gotten harder now, even for unique bands, because there's just so much out there. How do you find it?
Oh, yeah.
It's daunting almost.
It is. I will say with Half Japanese early on, we were so lucky that John Peel started playing us on his BBC broadcast.
Oh, cool.
Which he gave us the first big audience for Half Japanese was from his radio show.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's what led to us getting a record deal for the Half Gentlemen, Not Beasts release.
I'm not going to hit run Road Millionaires no more. No, I'm not going to hit run Road Millionaire no more. Road Millionaire, she won't ever take out dinner. Road Millionaire, she won't ever buy you a present. Even if it's your birthday, she don't care. That's a Road Millionaire. I'm not going to hit run with them. I'm going to hang around with a cool millionaire and have myself a cool time. I'm going to go to Paloma Picasso's house. And I'm going to sit on her sofa. And then she'll come sit down right next to me. And then I'll try to kiss her. And then I will kiss her.
Was from getting played on the BBC.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know. That's amazing. Look, it's been amazing. I know you've got a bunch of stuff to do, and I know you, like you mentioned at the beginning, you don't do a whole lot of these. So I want to thank you for your time. And you mentioned Bandcamp. Is Bandcamp the best way to find the albums?
Well, you can certainly go to the Kill Rock Stars website, and also go to Fire Records, and go to Joyful Noise. So, and Moon Records. There's a lot of great record labels that we've been working with.
Oh, wonderful. And so this got most, if not all of your discographies out there, half Japanese. Is there more stuff? You mentioned that another release that you've done will be coming out with Sam. Is there more work with half Japanese or more solo work for you coming up in the future?
Well, half Japanese, we just had a couple recording sessions in London.
Oh, awesome.
And those recordings will be released on Fire Records.
Okay.
And Fire has been great for half Japanese. And so most of the half Japanese albums are with Fire. There's a few things with Joyful Noise as well.
Jad, thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking with you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Going into this, when Robert first told me about this, performance anxiety, I thought, well, that's going to be a short interview because I never have performance anxiety.
Oh, that's good.
I just a lot of people do have that. I've never had it.
Oh, that is amazing. And I'll tell you a quick little story about this real fast, because people ask and they say, we didn't really talk about having performance anxiety. And that was supposed to be kind of like the through line for each episode. Is going to talk about how if they had it, how my guests got over it. And the conversations just got so, they're just so natural and casual and all. And so I would just forget to ask. And so out of the first 20 episodes, I think I asked one or two people. And so, but at that point I couldn't change the name. It was already,
okay, well.
So, and it's kind of become more about me getting over performance anxiety, talking with people that I admire and whose music I like. So it's more of a personal name now than anything. So.
Okay.
But,
okay. Well, it's good to talk to you.
Students on a field trip to New Orleans. Stop at a bookstore at Rampart and Lafayette. Well, this one looks good, said Penelope Bob. Sure does, said Robert to Penelope in. The Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon. The Book of the Damned, the Necronomicon.